Have you ever thought about how a tiny organism can change the course of human history? This question becomes all the more poignant when we delve into the dark and devastating history of the plague. Journey with us back to the earliest known instance of this deadly disease, the Justinian plague. In the middle of the 6th century, a silent and unseen enemy swept across the Byzantine Empire, a powerful state that had its seat of power in what is now modern-day Istanbul, Turkey. This enemy was not an invading army but a microscopic bacterium, Yersinia pestis, a name that would become synonymous with death and despair. The Justinian plague, named after the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I, struck with little warning and no mercy. The symptoms of this gruesome disease were as sudden as they were severe. Fever, chills, weakness, and swollen and painful lymph nodes, often accompanied by the appearance of dark necrotic tissue, giving the disease its other moniker, the Black Death. The impact of the Justinian plague was catastrophic. It is estimated that at its peak, the plague was claiming as many as 5,000 lives per day in the city of Constantinople alone. Over the course of its multiple outbreaks, it's believed that the Justinian plague wiped out up to half of the population of Europe, forever altering the demographic and political landscape of the continent. But the devastation was not just physical, the psychological and societal impact was just as profound. The plague instilled a deep-seated fear and confusion, a fear of an invisible enemy that could strike anyone, anywhere, at any time. It shook the very foundations of Byzantine society, and its effects would reverberate through history, shaping the course of human development in ways that are still apparent today. Thus, the Justinian plague marked the first major appearance of this deadly disease. This was a time in history when humanity was brought to its knees by a microscopic organism, a stark reminder of our vulnerability in the face of nature's unseen threats. Can you imagine a disease wiping out 60% of a continent's population? Now let's take a leap back into the 14th century, a time when Europe was gripped by a devastating plague known as the Black Death. The Black Death was an unprecedented disaster. It arrived in Europe in the mid-1300s through trade routes, transported by fleas on rats that infested merchant ships. It wasn't long before it spread like wildfire across the continent, from the bustling ports to the smallest, most secluded villages. As the disease made its way across Europe, it left in its wake a trail of death and despair. It was a swift and ruthless killer, with victims often dying within a week of exposure. The symptoms were gruesome to say the least. High fevers, chills, and the appearance of painful, swollen lymph nodes or buboes gave the disease its name, the bubonic plague. The Black Death was indiscriminate, affecting all walks of life. From the poorest peasant to the wealthiest noble, no one was safe. It's estimated that between 1347 and 1351, the Black Death claimed the lives of approximately 75 to 200 million people. To put this in perspective, that's roughly equivalent to wiping out the entire population of modern-day France and Germany combined. Society was thrown into chaos. Entire villages were abandoned. Trade came to a standstill, and the basic functions of governments and institutions were severely disrupted. People lived in constant fear and uncertainty, never knowing who would be the next to succumb to the disease. But amidst the chaos and devastation, the Black Death also brought about significant changes. It altered the social structure of Europe, leading to shifts in wealth and power. It sparked questions about medicine, religion, and the nature of disease that would lay the groundwork for advancements in the centuries to come. The Black Death was a turning point in history, leaving a lasting impact on European society. It was a time of great suffering, but also a catalyst for change, reshaping Europe in ways that would echo through the ages. What if a disease could travel across continents, affecting millions in its wake? This is not a hypothetical scenario but a stark reality that the world faced during the third pandemic of plague. Originating in Yunnan, China in the mid-19th century, the plague soon spread across the globe, leaving a trail of death and devastation in its wake. The speed and scale of its spread were unprecedented, largely facilitated by the advent of global trade and travel. Imagine, if you will, a world just beginning to experience the benefits of global connectivity. Transcontinental railways and steamships were shrinking distances, trade was booming, and people were moving around the world like never before. But nestled within these advancements lurked an unexpected and deadly passenger. The plague, the disease carried by fleas on rats, found its way into ships and spread along trade routes, reaching as far as the Americas and Africa. Cities bustling with trade became hotspots of the plague, their populations devastated. In India, the plague reached catastrophic proportions. Over 12 million lives were lost in a span of 30 years, making it one of the worst-hit regions. The disease not only impacted the population but also led to significant social and political upheaval. Despite the devastation, the third pandemic also marked a turning point in our understanding of the plague. It led to the identification of the bacterium responsible, Yersinia pestis, and the rat-flea-human transmission cycle. This knowledge was instrumental in developing strategies to control the spread of the disease. Yet, the third pandemic also served as a grim reminder of the global threat posed by the plague. It underscored the need for international cooperation in health matters and set the stage for the establishment of global health organizations. The third pandemic, therefore, was not just a health crisis, but a defining moment in human history. It brought to light the dark underbelly of global connectivity and highlighted the need for collective action in the face of a common enemy. The third pandemic highlighted the global threat posed by the plague. Have you ever wondered how such a devastating disease originates and spreads? The cause of the plague is a bacterium known as Yersinia pestis. This bacterium is not something to be taken lightly, as it has the power to wipe out large populations, causing severe illness and death. Now, the question arises, how does this bacterium reach humans? The answer lies in the small, seemingly insignificant creatures that often go unnoticed. The fleas. Fleas are the primary transmitters of this deadly bacterium. They become infected with Yersinia pestis when they bite and feed on an infected animal, usually a rat. When the infected flea later bites a human, it transmits the bacterium, leading to the onset of the plague. Rats, specifically black rats, play a crucial role in this transmission process. They serve as a reservoir for the bacterium and are the primary source of fleas infection. The fleas, after feeding on the infected rats, jump onto humans and other animals, spreading Yersinia pestis and consequently the plague. However, the spread of the plague is not solely dependent on the presence of Yersinia pestis, fleas, and rats. Unsanitary living conditions and high population density significantly contribute to the rapid spread of this disease. Poor sanitation attracts rats, which in turn harbor infected fleas. In areas with high population density, the close proximity of humans allows for easy transmission of the disease, with fleas jumping from one person to another, rapidly spreading the infection. Moreover, the absence or lack of effective waste management systems can exacerbate the situation, providing an ideal breeding ground for rats and fleas. Similarly, poor living conditions such as lack of clean water and proper housing can make individuals more susceptible to the disease. It's a deadly cycle, one that begins with a bacterium and ends with widespread disease and death. But, by understanding this cycle, by knowing how the plague originates and spreads, we can take steps to break it. And that's why understanding the causes of the plague is crucial for prevention and control. How can a disease shape society and culture? This isn't a rhetorical question. Rather, it's the reality that humanity faced during the times of the plague. The plague didn't just take lives, it reshaped societal structures, economies, and cultures in ways that echo through history. In the wake of the Black Death, the most devastating pandemic in human history, Europe was left with a significantly reduced population. This drastic reduction in the workforce led to an increased demand for labor. With a newfound bargaining power, the labor class began to rise. This was a turning point in history that led to the establishment of labor rights and the eventual shift from feudalism to modern capitalism. The economic changes were paralleled by transformations in culture and society. The plague instilled a profound fear of death into the collective consciousness, a fear that was reflected in the arts and literature of the time. The dance of death, or dance macabre, became a common motif in visual arts, an eerie reminder of the omnipresence of death. Religion, too, was deeply affected. The Church's inability to provide solace or answers during these trying times led to widespread disillusionment and a shift towards secularism. This questioning of established institutions laid the groundwork for the Renaissance and the Enlightenment. In many cultures, the plague led to the scapegoating of minority groups, such as Jews in Europe, who were falsely accused of poisoning wells and spreading the disease. These baseless accusations led to widespread persecution and pogroms, reinforcing societal divisions and prejudices that persist to this day. Yet, amidst the devastation, the plague also brought about an increased focus on public health and sanitation. The establishment of quarantine measures in plague hospitals during the outbreaks can be seen as the precursors to our modern understanding of public health. In conclusion, the plague has been more than a disease. It has been a catalyst for change, a shaper of societies, an influencer of economies, a muse for artists, and a harbinger of public health measures. It has indeed left indelible marks on human society and culture. The plague has left indelible marks on human society and culture. How have our encounters with the plague informed modern medicine and disease control? In the wake of these devastating pandemics, humanity has learned a great deal about disease control and prevention. The plague, in particular, has been a significant teacher. It has taught us the importance of public health measures and the role of antibiotics in disease control. Our historical experiences with the plague have been pivotal in shaping modern understanding of disease control and prevention. The plague taught us the hard way how diseases can spread and the devastating impact they can have. This understanding is now deeply embedded in today's public health strategies. Quarantines, isolation of the sick, and sanitation measures, all of these can trace their origins back to attempts to control the plague. Let's take a look at antibiotics. When the plague was raging, the concept of antibiotics was still centuries away. However, with the advent of modern medicine, antibiotics have become our primary weapon in the fight against bacterial diseases like the plague. With the discovery of drugs like streptomycin in the mid-20th century, we finally had an effective treatment for plague victims. Antibiotics have saved countless lives since their introduction, but their use is not without challenges. Overuse and misuse of these drugs have led to the rise of antibiotic-resistant strains of bacteria, a problem that scientists worldwide are working tirelessly to address. In addition to antibiotics, advancements in public health measures have also played a key role in disease control. We've learned the importance of sanitation, access to clean water, and proper waste disposal in preventing the spread of diseases. We've also realized the value of community education about disease transmission, symptoms, and prevention measures. Our understanding of the plague has also influenced the way we approach vaccine development. The knowledge gained from studying the bacterium that causes the plague has been instrumental in helping scientists to develop vaccines for other diseases. All in all, our encounters with the plague have been a harsh but valuable teacher. They have shaped the way we approach disease control and prevention, and have informed many of the strategies we use today to combat infectious diseases. The plague has shaped much of our current understanding of diseases and their control. What can the history of the plague teach us about facing current and future pandemics? In our journey through the annals of history, we've observed the inception of the plague, its gruesome iterations, and the immense impact it had on society and culture. From the harrowing tales of the Black Death to the third pandemic, we've seen how the plague, in its different forms, has shaped the course of human history. We started our exploration with the inception of the plague, a disease that emerged from the shadows to become one of the deadliest afflictions known to mankind. Then we delved into the Black Death, an era of devastation and despair, where the plague decimated entire populations and left a profound mark on the world. The third pandemic, though not as deadly as its predecessor, was a stark reminder of the plague's persistence. It underscored the need for understanding and combating such diseases, a lesson that is still relevant today. We also discussed the causes of the plague, unmasking the culprits such as the bacterium Yersinia pestis and the role of fleas and rodents in its transmission. This understanding of causes has been instrumental in shaping our modern approach to disease prevention. The plague's impact on society and culture cannot be overstated. It altered the course of history, influencing art, literature, and even the structure of societies. It was a catalyst for change, both devastating and transformative. In our modern understanding and prevention of the plague, we've seen how science has armed us with knowledge and tools to combat such pandemics. Vaccines, antibiotics, and improved sanitation are our shields against these microbial foes. So what can the history of the plague teach us? It serves as a stark reminder that we must remain vigilant, continuously improving our understanding and methods of prevention. It also teaches us that society is resilient, capable of facing immense challenges and emerging stronger. History, as they say, often repeats itself. By learning from the past, we can better prepare for the future.